Hey, greetings, everyone.
Yes,
And this is Nijma Esad. She's the manager of library programs for District of Columbia Public School Library Programs. She's the first of many DCPS librarians that are going to be presenting today. Also joining us, DMV Love, Sarah Breslaw, and she is the manager of the Montgomery County Public School System. And I welcome both of you. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, everyone. Sessions have been so phenomenal so far, so I hope we continue in that vein. I will allow Sarah to introduce herself first, and then I'll introduce myself.
first, thank you so much for having us and letting us be presenters at this conference. It's a real honor to be kind of in front of such a big audience of people who are in the library world and want to learn and also connect and grow. So my name is Sarah Breslaw. I consider myself still a media specialist first and foremost. Just this past October, I moved into the pre-K-12 content specialist role for school library media programs in Montgomery County. Prior to that, I was a high school media specialist in MCPS, as well as an elementary school media specialist, and I was a MCPS student K-12. So I'm really, this is my home.
And I'm Nijma Esad, library manager for District of Columbia Public Schools. My entire career as a school librarian has been with DC. Previously, I was a middle school librarian for DCPS for about 7 years. Prior to that, I just was in various aspects of education.
So we wanted to start with talking about some of the perceptions and the science. So introversion, being an introvert, people throw around the term all the time, but there's actually been a lot of research that solidifies what that actually means. The perceptions of introverts are often misguided assumptions, and they are sometimes stereotypically categorized as isolated, antisocial, or shy. But these are not inherent traits of introverts. And being an introvert is actually not an absolute. There's a spectrum. And these quizzes that are linked at the bottom of the slide can give you an idea of where you might fall. To clarify the misconceptions of introverts, I'm going to play a short clip from Susan Cain, the author of Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. She was on NPR, All Things Considered, and I'm going to pull up that clip right now. I have it where I wanted it. So we're just going to listen to that short clip where she really defines what an introvert is.
So introversion is really about having a preference for lower stimulation environments. So it's just a preference for quiet, for less noise, for less action. Whereas extroverts really crave more stimulation in order to feel at their best. And what's important to understand about this is that many people believe that introversion is about being antisocial, and that's really a misperception because actually it's just that introverts are differently social. So they would prefer to have, a glass of wine with a close friend as opposed to going to a loud party full of strangers. Now, shyness, on the other hand, is about a fear of negative social judgment. So you can be introverted without having that particular fear at all, and you can be shy but also be an extrovert. And in the book, you say that.
So I'm going to stop it right there because I think that was a really good definition so that as we move forward, that's what we're going to focus on, being an introvert. And not to say that some of these other traits come along with it, that they never are, together, but they are not always intertwined. So once we understand that introversion is centered around stimulation preferences, we can understand why so many introverts are attracted to the world of libraries. They are designed to have zones and spaces for solitude, concentration, thinking, and soft-spoken, intimate conversation. There is research, and I noted some articles below the image, and they talk about the fact that there's a difference in the way introverts and extroverts respond to neurotransmitters like dopamine and acetylcholine. I'm not a neuroscientist by any means, so I'm not going to go down that path fully and talk about all of the biological differences. But I do think it's important to have this research and to note that these preferences or dispositions are part of how you function and think. And so we're going to discuss how you can take this self-awareness, this knowledge, and transfer it to a role that might not seem like a natural fit for an introvert by highlighting the strengths of introverts as leaders.
All right, so really quickly, if you can, in the chat, you feel so inclined, when you think of principals, managers, directors you work with, what were the attributes they possessed that made them great leaders? Okay, I see trust, outspoken, interesting, communication, perfect, perfect. Cassidy, yes, a good listener. That is going to pivot us to our next slide. Thank you so much for all of the great attributes. So, like Cassidy and many other people said, communication and listening. I see Catherine, you just said listening as well. So some of the strengths of introverted leaders are we are good listeners. And so while communication is very, very important, we cannot underscore the importance of being a good listener. And I think as introverts, we prefer to listen. So more consistently, we listen to understand rather than listen to respond. And as we go through these, it's definitely not to say extroverted leaders don't embody many of these attributes, but we're speaking specifically about introverts. And from what I know of myself and Sarah, we would much rather prefer to listen to figure out genuinely what the issue is so we can genuinely work together to solve it. Another thing I think that makes introverts strengths or provide strengths as leaders is that we tend to be less reactive and more reflective, making us more thoughtful decision makers. We're also more empathetic leaders. Speaking for myself, I can think about being isolated working in the school library setting and feeling overlooked during various educator appreciation days that were celebrated in the school. I personally was never acknowledged during National School Library Day. So now that I'm in a leadership position, it's very important to me that the school librarians in my district feel affirmed, especially on April 4th. But I also have no problem setting boundaries in an effort to focus on the task at hand.
And leadership, introverts lead by example. They don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. They just have to. They inspire their team through the actions that they do. They demonstrate integrity, humility, and strong work ethic, earning the respect and admiration of their colleagues. Instead of relying on authoritative commands, introverted leaders empower their team members to take ownership of their work and lead by example, fostering a culture of collaboration, trust, and innovation. I should know I was an introvert executive. First-hand knowledge here. Introverts may approach career growth a bit differently than their extroverted counterparts, but make no mistake, their unique powers can propel them to great heights in the workplace.
So the last thing is leading by example. And I recognize that I'm a leader in my district, especially with respect to school librarianship. But I hope I also am very much a team player. Like throughout the school year, if librarians are feeling overwhelmed because their schedules are so jam-packed, I don't mind showing up to a school to help with shelving or weeding. I also try to attend as many programs as possible. And if I can't, I'm mindful of setting those boundaries and my peopling barometer, but I'm still going to show support in other ways. So I truly hope that I'm leading by example, and I hope that I get it right more often than not.
So we've kind of talked about introversion on a larger level and how it impacts us, but we're going to bring it a little bit more closer to home and focus on what it means in the realm of school librarianship, pulling a lot from our personal experiences and kind of looking at those things that have challenged us and that maybe is pacing your mind as a challenge for going on to that next position to apply to, and then how we've been trying to work on making it a strength or leveraging that self-awareness to move forward. So I'm going to start off with self-doubt, not feeling qualified to lead. So it's really hard when a lot of the times the model of leadership looks to be someone who aligns more as an extrovert, and it automatically sometimes can feel intimidating that maybe you're just not the right fit for that role. Or you can't fit that mold, but be open to recognizing your own strengths and how that could complement a team. If they do have a lot of extroverts, what can you bring to the table? And the fact that you need to sometimes give yourself a pep talk and remind yourself, you do have those years of experience, you do have that expertise, and sometimes at a different level, you have a different platform to actually exercise that voice instead of when you're in a situation where it's everybody trying to exercise their voice. So think about those reasons that you're qualified. And our last piece of advice for this one is, if all else fails, put on like your hype song, your song that's gonna like make you feel good. I know everyone has one, especially on your way to the interview. Like I listen to some artists who they just are so confident and they say like, I am the best, you know, and sometimes I need that to rub off on me to just like get that feeling going a little bit.
So another one, and this definitely hits home for me, being perceived as standoffish or apathetic. Sometimes, and this could be me projecting, I feel in my role, some librarians could be hesitant in coming to me with their concerns because I am perceived as so reserved. Our director, Dr. Kevin Washburn, is much more outgoing, and I feel like as a result, librarians may feel more comfortable reaching out to him. It could be other factors at play, like he's been in the position much longer. He previously held my position as manager, so maybe they just have a rapport. But regardless, I've heard as a critique that I always don't present as welcoming or friendly. So the way that I combat this is by continuing to show up as my authentic self and being as purposeful and transparent as possible in my communications with people. While still understanding that I can't control other people's perceptions of me, but I just want people to be mindful of the fact that my think face is absolutely not my stink face. Like I'm present, I'm here, and I've tried to kind of adjust the way that my face settles, but it just made my cheeks tired. Like trying to smile all day didn't seem genuine for me, and it didn't seem as though I felt like I just looked a little manic trying to cheese and be that happy presenting face. Not to say that I'm not happy, but coming across like that just didn't seem genuine. So that is how I turn that perceived challenge into a strength, is always trying to show up as my authentic self.
Something that's new to me in this position is I visit schools, and there are times when there are school visits and I'm, you know, observing, and sometimes there is a little bit of conversation, and I always feel like I don't want to leave a school without having any type of feedback, but I do struggle with, like, if I think it is an important or high stakes question, it's hard for me to come up with the words on the spot. I really like to take a holistic view, and kind of like what Nijma was saying earlier, that observation piece is kind of my area of comfort. So when I do go to school visits, I like to observe, I like to take notes and give minimal feedback on the spot, and then really like go back, digest, and look at all facets of a program. I might even go do a title-wise analysis, and then I'm able to give better feedback. And I find that I work better in communicating through writing. So that usually leads to a follow-up email, or sometimes I'll put a letter. And I feel like some of the feedback I've received is that it's actually more helpful to get, you know, some communication that's written, something that's tangible, something that we can, you know, it's the basis of a conversation, but there's more pieces to it. Because I do, you know, I am really hesitant to provide immediate like words on what I've just seen, because I really want to think about it. So I think that instead of providing that immediate feedback, I know myself, I carve out the time for reflection, and I give myself a deadline, and I let them know within, a week, you're going to hear from me, and, we can take it from there.
Feeling overwhelmed in large meetings or group settings. I combat this feeling by being prepared as possible. I need to be prepared to enter a large social setting that requires me to engage interactively. I'm definitely not the person who can freestyle anything. I'm not the person you call on last minute to speak to a group or to introduce a new initiative, because I just do not do well under pressure. That will create anxiety, and it will grossly ultimately affect my energy levels for the rest of the interaction or the rest of the event, and my ability to engage meaningfully with people after the presentation. So I absolutely have to practice and plan. I have to be prepared for the work part so that I have the energy to engage with the people part of the event.
And then the last one is about resolving conflicts. And I think like the strength of an introvert, and I'm just talking like across the board, not only in, my current position, but just anytime I've had a conflict, I think that it's helpful to have, it has been an asset in most cases, because I try not to have reactive statements. I try to stay calm, and I always try to listen. And then I always try to bring it to facts, to base the conversation on facts to move forward. So I've, had conflict with, folks in my life, and it happens in the workplace too. But I think that people have always appreciated the fact that, I never would call anyone out in front of a group, because that's just like, I can't even imagine doing that. I would always do a one-on-one. And I think about how that conflict resolution, it also was how I talked with students. And so I think that it's been helpful to be calm, base things on facts. The observation helps with gathering that data, to have that baseline of facts to talk about, and then just really listening. So that's what I try to strive to do.
So according to, and it's crazy that the only study I could find was in 1992, but I don't know that the percent has gone down. If anything, maybe it has increased. But a 1992 study showed that 63% of librarians identified as introverts. As a result, librarian was one of the top 13 jobs that was listed for someone who identified as an introvert. Social media manager was also on there, accountant, but library manager was not. And I guess it's still that idea of extroverts make the best leaders. But, we know that's not necessarily the case. Either way, I think it's important to remember that introverted librarians have the potential to thrive in various capacities and various leadership roles. So here are a few tips to guide you if you are interested in pivoting to something more in the realm of leadership. 1, step outside of your comfort zone. Maybe networking isn't for you. It's not new to you, but it's still a source of dread because you realize that small talk doesn't really work for you. You don't really get it. You have social anxiety trying to introduce yourself to new people, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be. So step outside of your comfort zone. Secondly, embrace new experiences. Perhaps you enjoy the theater and you would love to take the lead and direct a women's history play for your school, but you've never directed or worked with students and staff in that capacity. Direct the play. You got this. And if you don't, parents will love it regardless. Like, put yourself out there. You can do it. Thirdly, build on small successes. I don't know if you all heard me in the beginning, but I talked through the trembles. I was mortified when this first started. But if I can speak in front of 10 people. I can speak in front of 1,000 people. So I'm going to celebrate that small success. And lastly, talk sweetly to yourself. I personally think you're amazing. I think you're capable, and I think you're perfect for whatever role you decide to pursue, but you have to believe it, and you also have to speak it into existence. So speak sweetly to yourself.
And so these are some of the books that have even more research, tips, and advice about how to be an introverted leader and really recognize your strengths and really looking at those areas where you want to grow and push yourself. Nijma, did you want to add anything to this slide?
No, but we set aside some time for questions. So if you all have any questions, if you want to ask us anything, I'm monitoring the chat. Feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll do our best to answer. Oh, what are some artists you use to hype yourself up, Sarah?
Oh,
I'll tell
I'm
you
not
mine.
gonna tell. I mean, sometimes like Outcast, like so just like different types of music that like just they're hyper, they have a lot of energy. Sometimes I'll even listen to like EDM bangers. It just depends on like my mood. And it's like it's always the last thing people think that I listen to, but I can get into any type of genre. It's just, I don't know, it just has to be the right song that just kind of puts me into a different mindset. So
So me personally, I'm from Chicago, so old Kanye before he, is this new Kanye. Old Kanye hypes me up,
me
but
too.
the song that really gets me is Khalees Milkshake. My milkshake brings all the boys to the like that. I play that if I need to be hyped because it's just a sexy, empowering song. So yeah. And please, if you want to know like where you land, if you're an introvert, an ambivert, an extrovert, please check out Sarah, can you please drop it into the chat, the 16 personalities?
Let
I
me
took it and I'm like 92% introvert. Like I'm an introvert.
I'm gonna stop sharing so I can put it in the chat. Give me a second. Ooh.
Any other questions you have? All right. Well, thank you so much. Sarah's going to, I will survive. Yes, that's the awesome one.
Yeah.
Sarah's going to drop the personality quiz into the chat and figure out where you are. But thank you, everyone, and continue to enjoy the rest of the conference.
I will say this, there is a statement here by Katie McNamara, and she says, introverts and ambiverts shine when they control the flow of the narrative. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
so powerful. Yeah. Well, thank you. And ladies, your presentation, you make sure you go back in the email. You're going to share your presentation. Be sure and put it on the doc because there's a lot of resources I saw, especially towards the end, that are really valuable for all attendees. So thank you so much that you could take out time during your busy day because you guys work year round.
Yep.
So this is a
This
work
is
day
my
for
lunch
you
break.
all.
Yeah, I was gonna say this
Yes.
is lunch break.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming in today and sharing a wealth of knowledge on this topic. Thanks again.
Have a great day.
All righty. Okay, y'all. Let me stop the recording.